You're listening to Hit the News, Not the Snooze. This is KCR College Radio, the sound of San Diego State University. I'm your host, Talia Ralphpour, and my guest today is once more Dina Eliash Robinson. You all know her. She's the founder, researcher, and the editor-in-chief of FreeRangeClub.com, who during our last 3 interviews has given us many tips about food safety and eating habits that will keep us healthy, energized, able to focus and think creatively, while also helping us make smart choices when food shopping. Choices that help prevent waste and accommodate our very, very tight budgets. But today, Dina will don her other hat as developer of and expert instructor in an easy-to-learn, win-win communication and non-confrontational conflict resolution system called Peace Talk. Hello, Dina.
Hello, Talia. So nice to see you again.
So nice to see you. Now, Dina, tell me, what are some of the most useful skills that we need to communicate effectively with our professors, fellow students, university deans, administrators, and other staff?
Well, first you have to have a totally novel, to most people, form of communication. I call it collaborative communication, which means that you don't try to confront and compete and be combative or competitive based on ego. You try to be as collaborative in the communication as possible. That is basically the very basis of peace talk and good communication. I call it the win-win communication.
But, I mean, how can we as students really convince our professors or our faculty to include more information in classroom presentations, whether that's PowerPoints, lectures, that would help us better prepare for the exams, because, you know, our exams determine our grades?
Absolutely. But there are techniques to do this in a way that you are going to get what you want without insulting or disrespecting anybody, without raising their hackles, without getting them to be resistant to you, mainly because they feel that they're in a position of power and you should not be given complete autonomy, because then they're not doing their job. The most important thing is to make them feel that their position is secure and respected by you or by the other students as well, and yet at the same time you would like to enlist their help in collaboratively helping you solve your problem. For example, and this is communication whether it is written or videotaped or spoken, the most important thing is try to remember what you want and try to see what the other side wants too. What it is that is important to them, and then work around it. That's what negotiation and collaboration is about.
But see, I feel like there's such a disparity between what us, the students, want and are working towards, and what the professors want and are working towards. For example, for us students, we just want to get, we want to get A's and B's. We want to get good grades. I really feel like the only thing the professors want is their paycheck. And many of them have tenure, so it's essentially guaranteed, their paycheck. So how do we approach a professor? For example, I had a professor last semester who was a total schmuck, came to class in pajamas, in flip-flops, I mean the most unprofessional attire, read directly from the PowerPoints, and then tested us on questions that had absolutely no relevance on what he was teaching us. He wasn't teaching.
You mean never covered?
Never covered. And how are you supposed to approach someone who is totally unprofessional, but doesn't have anything at stake because they've worked at school for so long? They have nothing to lose, whereas you have everything to lose. You could fail the class.
Well, don't be so sure. They have a lot to lose. They can lose their prestige. They can lose their tenure, they can lose everything. That is not quite 100% true. However, you don't approach the professors. You start out in general not approaching any professors, not just a schmuck, but anybody else. You approach the dean of the department that this professor works in. And the best advice I can give you is don't go alone. Take 2 or 3 people with you. 2 or 3 people who think exactly the same way you're thinking. It's inevitable that a student will think, my goodness, I'm paying all this tuition, I should get what I need. Not necessarily what I want all the time, but what I need.
What I'm entitled to.
What I'm paying for.
Right.
So that is very normal. However, you have to go around it instead of straight confronting it. Sometimes, even in a military battle, the troops have to surround the target instead of just going head to head, because they're going to lose. So what you do is you gather a few like-minded students from your classes where the professor you feel is not doing what you need him or her to do, and you make an appointment with the dean. And you say to the dean, and I wrote this down because I wanted to be absolutely sure that I'm saying it in the right way. Dean so-and-so, thank you for seeing us. We appreciate your time. There is a problem that we have and we need you to help us solve it. By doing it that way, by saying it that way, you're telling the dean, I didn't come here to ask you to solve my problem.
I'm asking for your assistance.
Exactly. I'm asking for us to work as a team. But you're the dean, you're the adult, and we're hoping you can give us help. And believe me, most people, it is practically built into their human nature to be altruistic, to want to help. It is very rare that a human being will see another human being hurt and not run to their rescue. So it's built into us to be altruistic, and when you say to another human being like a dean or anybody else, could you help us resolve the problem? Meaning we will resolve the, we will do the work. Just direct us in, put us in the right direction.
I see.
That,
should we bring anything with us if we were to go speak to the dean? I guess evidence, how would you prove that this professor is not doing their job, or you don't feel that they're doing an adequate job?
well, that's an excellent question. As all your questions are always excellent. You're an ace interviewer, I must say.
Thank you.
It is a very good idea to bring whatever evidence you can, but I'm wondering what kind of evidence you can have. Do you...
I personally do, but I do. Whoops.
Well, find out if you're allowed, and if you are, bring one of your recordings with you, bring the textbooks with you, and bring a copy of the test, if you can have a copy of the test. I mean, don't you get the test back?
We get we generally are able to see our exams during office hours, but it's only within that time. We can't take them home or anything.
You can ask an administrator to make a copy for you about the test.
I see.
It's very possible that you'll be able to get a copy. Bring whatever paperwork just to show that you're prepared. It will get you a lot of respect from the dean. And then you say, well, here are some of the evidence, some of the proof that we have gathered. However, whether it is subjective or objective, whether it is just our perception, whether we are not getting it or not, we do not understand how to go about gathering the information we do have from the professor and from the textbook and making it work for the test, even if that is our fault. We need your help to show us where we're falling down on the job, where we're not getting it, and how to get back on the top of our potential and make it happen.
I see. And I mean, is that a legitimate conflict, do you think, that if you're in college and the professor isn't, quote, doing his or her job properly? Because I feel like as students, we often have to kind of just accept it, that the course is difficult, that the professor doesn't teach well, and he was the only professor available at that time for that class. We just got unlucky, and we just have to, deal with what we have.
Explain yourself. You never defend yourself. You never say, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to, da-da-da-da. You just become a broken record. You say, oh, absolutely, you're absolutely right about that. It's just that when, and you repeat it, when I find that the material I have paid a lot of attention to in class and tried to assimilate as best as I could, and the material I learned from textbooks, with which I did the same thing, try to learn it and assimilate it, and when I find that those have not worked for me in order to allow me to do well on my tests, what do I do then? Can you help me?
How long should I guess we'll call it a message, how long should the message be to the person? You don't want it to be too long, and you don't want it to be too short. So is there a time frame that you think is most appropriate?
Editing and prepared. I don't think well on my feet. I have something the French call l'esprit d'escalier, which means you think of what you should have said when you're out already walking down the stairs.
So have your friend have the message written on a board, stands over there and you read it.
Well, that can be done. So what you do, try as best you can with the memory that you do have to learn and prepare ahead of time for every confrontation. I still call it confrontation, but just remember, it should not be confrontational. You can have a peace talk confrontation, which is collaborative, which is respectful, tactful. You don't say to the guy who's wearing shorts and flip-flops, well, I never thought you were my professor dressed like this. I thought you were just one of the kids. That's not tactful. So you have to constantly think of the other person's sensitivity, the other person's needs. That guy needs his job. That's a given. So you do not threaten his job. You do not threaten his competence, because his ego gets involved and then he gets defensive. You don't want a defensive person on your hands, because then you have to explain yourself and back down. Who needs that?
Right.
Anything else?
So, do you think keep it short and sweet?
Yes. When you prepare ahead of time, you'll edit.
Right.
You'll edit the verbiage and you take out only the salient points. You put them in a list, you type it up or print it out from your computer, big letters, and you remember the main points you need to make. And try to keep it as short as possible. That always works.
Right.
Especially today, my God, people have the attention span of a gnat.
Right. Especially when a teacher probably doesn't want to be there talking to a student on his free time.
Right.
Yeah.
Or he doesn't have the time, or he's waiting for his next class to come in. Bless you. That's our videographer.
Got it. Okay, Dina, thank you so much again for being on the program. It's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you.
You're very